This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everyone. This is rhetorical, but I am going to say it. Challenging times that we live in right now. So much going on, lots of confusion. I don't want to get deep into politics here at all, but just when you look at the landscape of everything going on, it brings on anxiety, sometimes depression. There's a lot going on. How can we handle that? Some of us gravitate over to therapy, counseling, which is great, just talking to somebody. We're going to look at it through the lens of a clinical psychologist and something a little bit different, spiritual psychology, is part of what this gentleman offers. And it's so great to have him here from Massachusetts. Dr. Will Newman joins us on the program. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Are you hearing
Glad to be here.
Wonderful to have you here. Lots to talk about. Are you hearing in your practice an uptick of anxiety? Just, more people on edge. And I thought it was more coming from COVID after that, but it seems like now it's escalating with the world situation. Are you detecting that in the people that you work with?
I am. And as a result, healthy childhood and adolescent psychological development has been influenced in a way that has been destructive and severely confusing to have a worldview that gives one hope and peace and joy and loving kindness. It's the world has been influenced by the exact opposite: fear, confusion, hatred, discord, even to the extent of believing that if one is communicating information of peace and hope and joy and love, that the hatred is fueled by the opposite message that many of the youth have been learning in high school or college, influenced by the jihadist, Marxist, globalist movement in the world that has started at least 100 years ago and has been infused into the leadership of college professors and now even high school teachers. And the children are being confused because if they're growing up in a family where parents are teaching them spiritual values from a perspective of hope and faith and love in God, the opposite message is being communicated to them in their education in high school and college. And it's even influenced not only confusion about why am I here and what is my purpose, but also what am I going to do with my life as it relates to how this destruction and hatred has influenced the country's economy and influenced students who graduate from college and don't have jobs and are disillusioned. Why would I work so hard as an engineer student and I can't get a job? And why can't I get a job? I worked hard, I succeeded, and our country needs us, yet the jobs aren't available. And that's one of the reasons there's so much anxiety. There's an intolerance of uncertainty because the uncertainty is real at this time, more than any time in our country's history. And it's been developmental in our country because it has been led by the educational system, and rather than following the values of parents that may be from a spiritual place of Judeo-Christian values, which our country has been influenced on, they've been taught the exact opposite, to discard those values, to question those values, to disregard those values. And as a result, there's been a impulsive choice to cope by joining other groups who are following messages that they were taught in high school and college and from the media, that the world is against them, the country is against them. There isn't a place for them to fit anymore.
Well, you
And
say the word, Dr. Will, you say the word confusion, and it's clear here, as we talk about all of this, if you look at the average student, high school student, middle school, whatever, their parents may be showing them love and value and morals, just trying to raise, a good student, a good teen adult. But it's conflicting because then you hear messages in media and you look at the whole global situation, and that doesn't jive with what mom and dad were telling me, or at least trying to show me, or maybe wanting me to feel. And do you feel that that's what's going on here, that there's such a dichotomy, a disconnect between, what our parents are trying to teach us and then what we're seeing globally?
yes, it's because what their parents are teaching you, go to college, work hard, study hard, and you'll get a job like us. But that's not happening. And they're feeling confused because they're disillusioned about what is there really in this country that gives me what my parents told me that they believe in. And that is, this country was founded on the Constitution as a constitutional republic and the Judeo teachings of the church, Christian church, and the Jewish synagogue. And it has been in direct conflict with the messages in the media, in the globalist big businesses and corporations who are hiring H-1B visa people from other countries and taking their jobs when they get out of college. And that leads to disillusionment, confusion, anger, and resentment. And then they begin to question what their parents have taught them. And is it really true? I'm living with you. I want to be able to have my own apartment and someday get my own job and own home and get my own job. And I'm not able to do it. And this has been going on for so many years. In the past 25 years, in a very high degree. And the proliferation of the gangs that teenagers join because they don't have a father in the family, and they think that they get a sense of belonging and power if they join a gang, because they get that sense of belonging that they're not getting with the parent because they may have grown up in a single parent family. You probably have heard many of our Black leaders in the country have continually concluded that the problem with the high number of gangs are related to the single parent families growing up without a father to give them the leadership with strength and courage of following the values that are related both in our history's heritage of the Constitution and the church and the synagogue. And therefore, they're saying, well, look, I've been following this and look where it gets me. Or they don't have a father to talk to them, and their mother may be working, or she may have grown up traumatized, therefore she's not able to be present. Or if they're not from a disadvantaged family and with poverty, it could be a family where the parents are working 2 jobs to make ends meet, and they're not present, or they don't have the energy to be present to assure and reassure, give safety and protection, comfort, guidance, soothing, inspiration. So they're turning to the social media. And as you know, many of the social media resources that they go to are propagating messages of the globalist, jihadist, Marxist agenda, which is an option for them to believe in something else because they've been disillusioned and confused about the values that they grow up with in their families in the church or the synagogue.
Well, you also
And
then with social media, their peers are posting things, and it's what you want others to see. It might not be the reality, but that's believed. On social media, I mean, they've done research. 78% of us get our news daily from Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snap. That's
yes.
that's where the belief is coming from. If it's like back in the day, if it's in print, it must be true. No, you know. I wanna pivot over to now that we identify there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, confusion among many, not just one demographic. Doesn't have to be teens, adults, all of that. But you offer something called energy psychology. And I'm intrigued to learn more about that. Psychology, I got that part. The energy part, been studying it for a number of years, got that part. The blending of the two, I have confusion. But what exactly is energy psychology?
Energy psychology is a way to clear and unblock the painful emotions of fear, hurt, anger, confusion, guilt, and shame that they feel because of their environment and their experience that is stored in the body because the body holds the emotion.
Hmm.
There is a biochemical electrical connection from the brain to the body. And the painful emotions of fear, hurt, anger, guilt, shame, confusion, loneliness, even hatred become stored in the body. And when there is a present experience that is distressful, that biochemical electrical connection is then triggered in the body where all these other painful emotions have existed through the child development. And even in families where there is a father or mother, there can be an accumulation of painful experiences that have become traumatic. And this trauma is what is blocked in the body. Spiritual energy psychology is a way to clear the body from those emotions and to connect it to spirit that is connected to faith in God, a belief that we are not alone, that each one is created in God's image and has a purpose. And even though you're not experiencing the peacefulness and the happiness, and you don't know what your purpose is, you really do. And it's being misguided and misdirected by the reactivity of the traumatic childhood experiences.
Let's talk about that. Let's really
Yes,
put the microscope on that. So, great book came out a number of years ago. The Body Keeps Score. So
yes,
everything we deal with, every emotion from childhood on up, from birth on up, many believe that, like you say, it's stored in the body down to the cellular level. You think that you were on the playground, you were 7 years old, you got bullied, or your best friend said, "We're not friends anymore," and walks away. Traumatic for a 7-year-old.
yes,
You think that's gone, but it's not, right? It's in the subconscious. The emotion, the feeling is now in your DNA. You're holding on to it. Now, fast forward, and tell me if I'm getting this right. Fast forward to when you're older, and then a situation comes up, and it's almost as if you went right back to that initial feeling of, in that case, maybe isolation or fear, got bullied, all of that.
yes,
We go back to it. Um, where I'm going here is the energy is within.
yes, that's it. The book you're referring to was written by a man who I know and have talked to many times, Bessel van der Kolk. He's the man who developed the diagnosis of childhood developmental trauma.
Wow.
And interestingly enough, after he's presented it, his diagnosis, and the very convincing, highly scientifically accurate research that he has done in Boston. I'm practicing on the North Shore, so that's given me opportunity to talk to him many times over the years.
Mm.
And it has not been included in the diagnostic manual of psychological disorders that the insurance companies want for a diagnosis, and their lawyers
Mm.
who support them are asking for. And he doesn't get an answer when he says, "Here's the scientific evidence. Uh, why aren't you putting that as a diagnosis?" And I've heard him speak about it, and I've talked to him about it many times. And we don't know that answer. I suspect it may have something to do with uh, power and politics and secrets that we don't know about fully, but we certainly can theorize what they're about.
Mm.
And that goes way back into the 90s, where uh, psychologists and other psychotherapists uh, were threatened by lawyers saying this is a false memory syndrome, that these children weren't really sexually abused, and that the therapist is influencing that memory.
Mm. All right.
That
So
may
I want to say the word, and I want your feedback on this hypnotherapy. If you accurately, effectively hypnotize somebody, these things come up. So
they
what?
come up, they come up when it's done in a very professional, experienced way
Sure.
that is taught in the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. And that's where I got to know two other colleagues who were specifically targeted. Uh, the late, great Daniel Brown, the psychologist here in Boston, who passed away, and another psychologist in Salt Lake City, Utah. And he was telling me that he was in the 90s getting threatening phone calls to his home to stop what he was doing. And so many psychotherapists became fearful to treat children and adolescents and adults who suffered complex childhood developmental trauma. And
But haven't we all, Dr. Will, haven't we all suffered trauma from our childhood? All of us, I call it big T trauma, little T trauma. Some of the
that's
things you're
correct.
referring to is the big T, but back to the playground.
But there's little T.
The little T.
Absolutely. Everyone has experienced one or the other. Hopefully, unfortunately, maybe more little T. However, during these current times of fear and hatred and terrorism, there might be more little T. Might be more big T as a result. You're correct in your clinical language.
Well, isn't it true also that we've evolved from the beginning of time piloted by fear? So fear is
Yes.
always there, and we want to feel comfortable. So now in, these times, if you will, where do you feel comfortable? So with
Yes.
everything going on.
And that goes back to my discussion in the beginning of our conversation about the importance of parents two parents, not one, who are able to offer essential attachment experiences, which are fundamentally safety, protection, soothing, comfort, guidance, direction, and delight, laughter, smiles, hugs, kisses, cheerfulness, singing. Every child needs that.
I agree 1,000,000,000%. And in a perfect world, that would be there. But I am going to cut parents some slack in that we don't know how to parent. So if being very transparent, if I knew what I know now, and my youngest is 17, if I knew, I would have parented differently, knowing what I know in terms of, not that, anything was wrong, but differently in terms of exactly what you're saying, but really what it goes back to is we parent how we were parented and the parents before that and before that. So, generationally, that's what we got. That's why it's great we talk about this stuff.
And what you just said is the origin and the essence of the symptoms of high anxiety, fear, hatred, anger, confusion. Meaning that if a child doesn't have that, and the parents don't know how to give it, and there can be many different reasons. It may be because they didn't get it, or it may be that they're working too much and they're too worried and they can't be present with very good intentions, or it could be their parents were traumatized by a very severe traumatic physical, emotional, sexual abuse, neglect, and deprivation because they don't have time to be present and give time and attention. And that leads to generational trauma.
Well, we're gonna press the pause button there, Dr. Wolf. We're out of time. We can keep going here. This is wonderful. we're providing, important insight here. Yeah. Can you work with people on a virtual basis?
Yes.
Excellent. How do we find you? What's your website?
My website is Energy Psychologist, Amesbury, MA, Massachusetts.com, where my practice currently is on the North Shore of Boston. And my phone number is 978-388-0022. My email is drbillnewman@gmail.com. And I go by Dr. Will Newman.
Dr. Will, fascinating talking with you today, especially blending the psychology side to the energy side. So much more to talk about next time we get together. And I truly appreciate you being here today.
And I am glad to be here. Look forward to our next talk.
Likewise. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.